Welcome to CCI Drive Time, the podcast for vended laundry distributors. I'm Steve with CCI, using your drive time to cover laundromat trends, payment systems, and practical topics that you can use in the field. So today we're going to talk about pricing. And regardless of whether or not you're quoting a payment system or laundry equipment, or really any piece of equipment that you might offer a store owner, pricing is going to come up. And in all my years of selling payment systems, one of the things that seems to be a reoccurring message is the price. Payment systems are expensive. Laundry equipment is expensive. And if you've been around any period of time, those prices are only going one direction, and that's up. And so for salespeople to get ahead of that, we need to realize that pricing is going to be part of the equation in any sale. But I think that what we need to do is be really careful. And for those of you who've been around a while, some of this is going to feel quite like elementary in some regards, but sticker shock is something that is a real thing. But the reason people have sticker shock is that they have not yet found the value around the price. If the value was completely evident, then the price would seem very fair. So sticker shock is more about not understanding the ROI completely. And so we need to make sure that we are doing the right things when we present our products and our services to make sure that the value proposition is there right up front to help reduce that sticker shock. Or if you get into a sticker shock situation, that you have a way to circle back and talk about the value so that the price doesn't seem to be out of place. So brief story, many years ago when I was selling our payment systems, I found myself in a distributor's office that had owned near 18 laundromats in their market. They literally owned the entire market itself. And they were 100% coin. And at the time I was presenting them with a laundry card solution. And they seemed to like the product. They listened to my pitch. They listened to the value proposition. But then they came back to me and said, how am I going to make my $50,000 up that I sell in change? And that was something I didn't know. Because they had such a locked market, that they were selling change. I had never heard of this in all my time. I still don't, I'm not sure I've seen it anywhere else. But this particular distributor had such a captured market that they were actually able to charge essentially a convenience fee for customers to get change out of their change machines, which is great. And it equated to $50,000 a year in additional revenue. Now, that meant that not only was I supposed to present how a payment system was going to be all that, and provide all the value and the benefits associated with that, there was a new challenge that I wasn't aware of going into it, that they had this additional revenue stream from collecting from selling coin. And so it took some time, but I, again, provided my value proposition and then circled back not too long after to find that although they are making a lot of money selling coin, the downside to that was that retail customers would bring a lot of coin. There were many retail customers that didn't want to pay for change, so they would bring their own coins in. They'd get change elsewhere. And that resulted in a massive surplus of quarters in the store that had to be dealt with. So when they would go through and do their collections, they would remove a ton of coins from the store. You know, most stores, they just take all the coins out of the washers and dryers and put it right back in the change machine, and that just kind of continues on. You might have a little surplus, or maybe need to backfill a little bit. If you're near a bus station, all of us know you're probably going to lose quarters, but having a massive amount of surplus is not super common. But this company, and in their 18 stores, had a massive amount of surplus quarters, so much so that they needed a 3/4 ton pickup truck to do their collections. And because there was so much coin being pulled out, that they would have, at the end of their collection week, they would have just a complete pickup truck filled with quarters that had to go to a bank. And as you might imagine, there are not many banks that are interested in dealing with managing that much coin. Just the volume, the weight. They needed to have a large door that the truck could back up into, and there aren't too many tellers that want to unload bags and bags and bags of quarters. So although selling change had resulted in a pretty good revenue stream, they started to find that there were no banks that wanted to do business with them. And separate from that, there was somewhat of a transition happening between the owner of the company and the son-in-law that was coming in to start operating maybe as a primary operator. And in that, the the new leadership was a little less interested in managing that much coin himself. He realized the risk that was involved in that. He realized that there were a number of factors where continuing to process that much coin was not good, and just dealing with the collection process across that many stores was very time consuming. And so although the pricing of the system was a factor, and really the price was a factor because they needed to make up an additional $50,000 a year somehow, when we put the numbers together and we looked at all the value proposition, truly, we found that not only were we able to cover the cost of the hardware and the solution we were offering, but that we were able to also make up this $50,000 deficit on top of that. And so what we need to do is just make sure that sticker shock, other situations, other sequences that are going to come up that are going to mean that price is a factor, if they're surprised, that means they don't understand the impact. They don't understand the ROI yet, and you're not done presenting your solution. I think when you present any solution, we'll talk about payment systems as it relates to us, is that you're not just buying hardware, you're buying operational leverage. We're in a business where our entrepreneurial customers are looking to make money, and so we are giving them the tools to do so. In the payments system side of things, we talk a lot about time. How much time do they spend in the store? How much time do they spend managing the operational details of the store versus the amount of time they spend working on growing the business, improving the business, getting more customers in the store? Eliminating some of those operational details allows you to focus more on your marketing plans, your employees, and developing the right employee and the staff, and look for more locations, growing, whether it's expanding the business or if we're looking for location number 2, number 3, number 4. And so when we talk about payment systems and the ROI and what are they actually buying, I think that's the position that you want to bring, is that we're buying a tool to allow them to grow, allow them to focus on making the most money possible. And that is separate from the tools that a payment system is going to provide, which is to give them a mechanism for promotions that you just can't do with coins, whether it's bonus dollars, loyalty points, pricing specials. Just the flexibility just isn't there in a coin system. But I want to focus back on this idea of time, because I think that we underplay that, and I think it's easy for investors, entrepreneurs to downplay how important time is. And again, another short story about early on in my career visiting with a multi-store owner. This multi-store owner had near 30 locations, all coin operated. I went to present at the distributor's office that had invited me in to talk to this customer about, again, eliminating coin using our laundry card product. And this customer participated. I should say he attended the presentation that I was there to give, but I think he fell asleep within 3 or 4 minutes of me talking. And his son was there, and he listened the entire time, but the principal, he fell asleep quick. And it's easy as a salesperson to take that as things aren't going really well. But I continued. I did my presentation. I presented the value as best I could. And when I left there, I didn't have high expectations, much to happen. I wasn't able to keep the interest where I needed to keep it. But again, not long after that visit, the distributor reached out to me and said, he wants to try one. He's got a brand new location coming online and he wants to try a payment system. And so we were all in, fantastic, great, put the card system in. Things went well, and he got a glimpse of the time difference between operating with coins and operating card only. And over the course of the next 5 or 6 years, he slowly started to migrate and upgrade his coin stores to card, to later find out that he basically started his day, every morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, because he was in a high traffic market, because he needed to get ahead of the traffic. And he basically would be collecting all day long, every day of the week across all these stores. He'd done a great job of amassing this huge network of stores, but was completely burdened by it. He was sleeping during my presentation because I got there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and he had just gotten off the road. He had already been working for 10 to 12 hours that day, not because he wasn't interested, but because he was exhausted. And that was his life. He and I had lunch a number of years after he had converted most of his stores. He had sold some. And he shared with me that the time that he was basically killing himself. And he now had time to have a social life. He had time to spend time with grandchildren. He had time to do things that he wanted to do. He had this really nice Mercedes and he never got to drive it. And now had time to drive it. You can't really put a price tag on giving someone their life back. You can't really put a price tag on giving them an opportunity to live their life again. Although this is a bit dramatic, the reality was there. And this particular customer was very happy. His personal life had changed. His attitude, he was a pretty rough and tumble kind of guy. His attitude had changed over the years I got to know him. It was just an amazing transformation. So time is something we can't underplay. I did not really value his time up front, but when he got a taste of it, when he got to see how much time he had been invested in his businesses, he now was able to do the things that he wanted to do again. So, something to keep in mind, time, very important. To circle back to ROI a bit, and I cover this a lot in my morning drive calls. And if you listen to me in the morning, I try to touch on some of these little pillars of the advantage of payment system. But we have to make sure that we don't overlook them. The basics of a payment system, the ROIs around the basics of payment system are real, but don't overdo the math on it. I think we just want to make sure that we are sticking to the truths. One of them is that penny incremental pricing versus quarters is a huge, huge ROI factor. Take any pro forma that you've ever put together for a new investor, and you'll have VEN prices on there, you'll have the equipment mix on there, you'll have the hours of operation, you have all of the details you need to do a pricing experiment, whereas rather than having the machines end on a 25 cent or a zero, which is what you have to do with a quarter, have the machines increase their VEN price by 9 cents. That's the magic number, actually. Increase the VEN price by 9 cents and then assume that you're going to get the same number of cycles that you would when you were 9 cents less. Nobody's going to run off from the store because it's 9 cents more to use a machine there. And you will be shocked at the value that is there by just having that small incremental increase in VEN price across all the machines. The dryers alone will likely pay for the system itself by just being 9 cents more per dry cycle. So that's huge. We can't overlook that. Second is the float. I know there's pros and cons, people who are pro and con float in the store owner world, but float is a massive ROI factor in a payment system. This is the idea that a customer is going to pay you in advance versus as they go. Traditional coin store, customers come in with cash, they get change, they put the change in the machines, and they leave with whatever remaining change they have with them, if they have any. And that's it, the transaction's over. in a card store, they come in, they put money on on their card, they spend maybe 90% of it, and they leave the store with a card that still has that remaining balance on it. And those remaining balances, albeit small per card, multiplies massively over the course of all your customers. You have a few hundred customers, a few thousand customers, and they all have 25 cents, 50 cents, maybe some have $1 or $2 on their card. And it is massive. The amount of money that is there is massive. Again, my family's owned stores for many years. One of our first stores that we opened, near 23 years ago. We no longer have the location, but we did an experiment there in the early days of our laundry card product. And after 4 years of operating that store, we did some analysis of the data. And in that data, we said, how many customers have not been in the store in a year? So to me, that meant that they're not coming back. Those retail customers have left. They've moved away. They've lost their card. Whatever the reasons, they were not coming back. Great. And in a 4-year period, there was something like 25,000 cards that had not been used in a year. And that was shocking alone, that was that many cards that had just gone silent. But the more important figure that we got is what was the accumulated balance on those cards that were unspent for a year. And at the time, I believe it was around $48,000 of unclaimed funds on those cards that were not coming back. That was basically that store over the course of 4 years making an additional $48,000. Well, I can tell you at the time, that was more than enough money to pay for that system. And that doesn't count the increase in vend price that we had because of the penny nickel pricing, the time savings factors in it, the marketing layers, all the other things. But just the float alone paid for the entire system. We need to tell that story. So again, between the penny and the float and the time savings, we have an amazing ROI story to tell. And then one last layer to a payment system is really the valuation of the store. I think there are many store owners that say, I want this store, I'm going to run it, but I do want to sell it someday. And coin stores sometimes struggle with providing proper documentation to value the store for the asking price. Well, that completely goes away when you've got great records and you've got a payment system that is tracking everything for you. So we shouldn't underplay the idea that when you buy this up front and you track your information, that you have every bit of detail that you need financially to prove to a prospective buyer that the valuation you're providing is real. So let's not forget that. So, let's continue with talking a little bit about price. So let's circle back. So we've talked about ROI. We've talked about how you got to make sure that the valuation is there for that investment. But let's talk about the approach, because something that I have seen more than I think I'd like to see is how salespeople approach sticker shock, or they approach any conversation where price is one of the first things that comes back from the investor, the store owner. And what I hear too often is, well, let me see what I can do on the price. And that is the wrong message right up front. You're signaling uncertainty. You've immediately undermined the value proposition that if you have presented any that you've had, and it just turns the conversation instantly into a negotiation instead of you being a consultant, which is what distributors are supposed to be, is equipment consultants. Once you have the confidence in the ROI that we've talked about, once you've had an opportunity to truly believe that the product that you're offering to them in the payment system is going to make them more money, help them be more successful, everything is going to shift. If you sound unsure, and usually let me see what I can do on price is kind of a clue into I'm a little unsure, your owner will also be unsure about that investment as well, and you'll have to go back and reestablish the ROI factor and the value proposition. So what are some of the things that you can do, you can say to somebody that approaches things as a cost factor? I think you need to start by framing the words right. I would use things like this isn't a cost, it's an infrastructure that replaces coins, it adds revenue, it modernizes the store. We can't forget that particularly for customers who are investing in new business or a total retool, they're going to make a huge upfront investment in that business. This is a layer of that, and there's probably no other layer of that investment that is going to have as much impact on how the store runs day to day. No other system. And so making sure that they choose the right products that provide that kind of ROI is critically important to the conversation. They have to realize that. So we have to reframe the conversation to go from price to impact. We want to make sure they realize the price is a factor. Don't run away from the fact that it's expensive, but make sure they realize the impact is so large that the price is not a factor. And that just comes with confidence and having the opportunity to work with customers that have been successful. And I would certainly encourage you that once you've landed some card system deals, you go back to your customers and have these conversations to help arm you with the confidence that you need to go to the next investor, the next entrepreneur. Now, let's be real. There are absolutely customers out there that are very price focused. Some buyers look at everything as a lowest price scenario, and that those are situations that are going to come up. This doesn't necessarily make those investors a bad spend of time. I think that you will find that as you become more consultant, you're going to attract the kinds of investors and entrepreneurs to you that want your help. But there are still investors out there that are 100% price driven. And I think what you need to do is make sure you set boundaries. And, before you have price considerations or concessions with them, that you get the fair opportunity to make the value proposition. Nobody's going to walk away for a few dollars. You're not going to miss a deal. You won't walk away from a deal for a few dollars. And also remember, they won't walk away from a deal for just a few dollars either. But the only way that works is if you set the appropriate value proposition up front, that you make sure that they realize what they're walking away from over a few dollars potentially. So, the other layer that we have to be really careful of is that if you're selling on really tight margins, if you're like, I'm just going to be a price leader, I'm going to sell things as cheaply as possible, as inexpensively as possible, whether it's our product or any product that you have in your catalog, is that it really is going to hurt you in the long run when it comes to delays, installation issues, and then you have to repair the relationship because you've got such a tight margin that you don't want to spend any more time there. You need to move on to the next sale. And the customer feels like they've been, let out to dry. I can't tell you how often I've seen somebody take a short deal and they sold the product, so they won in that regard, but they sold at such a thin margin that if one little hiccup happens, whether it's weather related, whether an item didn't get shipped or it was something that failed in the, out of the box, and these are just real world examples, they're nothing unique to any one manufacturer, that now the deal is completely compromised. The salesperson is completely stressed out because now the installer has to spend an extra day or two working on things. The install is a 5-hour drive from their office, and so they can't just come back easily the next day. And so selling on a margin that is so tight that's going to require those types of things is just going to hurt you in the long run. And it ultimately means that you're not going to be able to provide the level of service that you want to provide to that customer, and they're going to feel it as well. So you ultimately are going to ruin that relationship. They likely aren't going to buy again. They're going to blame you for things they shouldn't blame you for. And you didn't have the margin to cover it because things happen, and we're all realists. We realize that. So to kind of put things in a close, don't apologize for offering something that is going to make them money, that is going to save them time, that is going to make their lives easier. Have the confidence that the products and the services that you're selling are absolutely going to help them achieve their goals. If you can understand that value, believe in it, then the price is just part of the conversation. It's not a confrontation anymore. And when you can get to that place, you're going to find that you're going to get more deals closed, that you're going to have customers that appreciate you more. And you're going to be able to provide a level of service to those customers that they expect, that we all expect as consumers. And it's the place that we as distributors need to find our way back to. We need to make sure that we are helping those customers be successful. In turn, that will make all of us successful and help us at the end of the day. Your job is not to be the cheapest. Your job is to give owners the tools to be successful. That's all I have for you today. We will see you next time.